My wife got pregnant by a good-looking scientist. She said she wanted a baby with superior genes. My name is Ryan. I am 32 years old, and for 2 years, I was married to my now ex-wife, Sophie, who is 30. What I am about to share still catches me off guard, even though I lived through every second of it. Sophie, the woman I thought I knew inside and out, betrayed me in the most devastating way. Sophie and I weren't strangers when we started dating. We had grown up in the same neighborhood and knew each other well as kids. But around the time I turned 15, her family moved away, and we lost touch. Years passed. Then one day, as adults, we ran into each other by chance. I still remembered having a crush on her as a kid, and when we reconnected, the spark reignited. After exchanging numbers, we started spending time together. She happened to be single then, and after a few weeks of hanging out, I asked her to be my girlfriend. She said yes. We were together for a year before we got married. Looking back, maybe it all sounds too easy, but I truly loved her. She was still that sharp, lively, energetic person I remembered from our childhood. She worked as a junior high teacher, and I made my living as a mechanic. Sophie had always been drawn to smart people. She admired intelligence above all else. I was more laid back. I got along with anyone. That was probably the biggest difference between us. At first, I sometimes felt like I didn't measure up to her standards. But as we fell deeper in love, that insecurity faded. Still, I always went the extra mile to keep her happy. Our marriage was full of laughs, peace, and joy. We barely argued. Sophie told me during our dating days that she hated being yelled at, so we both made a promise never to raise our voices at each other. Even during disagreements, our tone stayed calm. We agreed on wanting kids early on. Neither of us believed in waiting years after marriage to have children. I wanted to raise my kids while I was still young enough to be active in their lives. So as soon as we were married, we started trying. There were close calls. Sophie missed a few periods, but they turned out to be false alarms. Then she got pregnant, and we were thrilled. But a month later, she miscarried. That loss hit us hard. After months of anticipation, our hopes were crushed. We took a break before trying again. But when she got pregnant a second time, it ended in another miscarriage, around the 5th week. She woke up one morning bleeding, and the hospital confirmed it. That loss put a huge emotional strain on us. For months, we didn't even talk about having kids. I focused on being supportive and didn't bring up the topic again until I could tell she was emotionally ready. Eventually, our lives settled back into a rhythm. I took over nearly everything around the house: cooking, cleaning, grocery shopping, even yard work. I did it all because I wanted Sophie to know that there was nothing wrong with her. She blamed herself for the miscarriages, thought she was bad luck. I made it my mission to prove otherwise. About 4 months after the second miscarriage, I was tidying up one weekend when Sophie approached me in tears. I thought something was seriously wrong. But then she told me she was pregnant again. I was stunned and overjoyed. She said she didn't even realize it at first, but had taken a test after feeling different. Her period was late, and she figured it was just her usual hormonal imbalance. No morning sickness, no clues. We went to the doctor and learned she was already 8 weeks along. She was told to rest and avoid stress. That became my #1 job. I took on everything at home and made sure she was as comfortable as possible. I prayed daily for the baby's safety. When we found out we were having a boy, I was over the moon. I always hoped for a son first. I talked to the baby, rubbed her belly, shopped for baby gear, and watched every milestone with excitement. In her 3rd month, Sophie said she wanted to take time off work to focus on her health. I had no problem taking care of her financially. I respected her decision and supported it fully. Then came the 6th month of her pregnancy. One evening after dinner, Sophie fell asleep on the couch. I covered her with a blanket and started clearing the dishes. Her phone was on the table. When it chimed, I ignored it at first, not wanting to disturb her. But the notifications kept coming. I picked up the phone to silence it, and out of curiosity, I glanced at the screen. Messages were coming in nonstop, from WhatsApp and Instagram. Her phone had a fingerprint lock, which I used with her finger while she slept. That is when I saw it. The messages were from someone saved with just a heart emoji. The man was asking, "How's my baby doing today?" and other questions about her health. I kept reading. At first, I thought maybe he was a doctor. But as I dug deeper, it was clear he wasn't. He messaged her on Instagram, too, including an explicit photo. That was when it hit me. She was having an affair. I went through the guy's Instagram profile and learned he was a scientist. Everything inside me sank. I had spent the past months pouring everything I had into protecting and caring for what I thought was our child. But it wasn't our child. It was his. That night, I packed a small bag and drove to a friend's house. I couldn't bear to see her. The worst part was knowing that the guy knew about me. He'd ask Sophie if I was treating her and the baby well, and she'd respond, "Yeah, he's trying." That response burned. I had cooked for her at all hours, massaged her back and feet, did all the chores, and dealt with every emotional shift. And she told him I was trying? At 3 in the morning, she called me when she woke up and saw I was gone. I told her I had gone to the shop to deal with some work. I said I'd be back in the morning, but I did not return. For 4 days, I stayed away. She kept calling. She even showed up at my workplace, only to be told I had taken time off for personal matters. During that time, I created a fake Instagram account and looked deeper into the man she had been messaging. I found out he was married to a psychologist and had 2 children. I reached out to his wife and sent her screenshots of everything. She replied the next day and asked to meet. When we met, she was shocked. I showed her the messages, and when I mentioned Sophie was pregnant with her husband's baby, she nearly fainted. We agreed to confront them separately. That same day, I went back home. Sophie rushed to me, clearly relieved. I told her I wanted a paternity test. She was stunned. She laughed and said I was being ridiculous. She refused at first, but I insisted. That night, for the first time in our marriage, I raised my voice. She cried, accused me of not trusting her, acted heartbroken. I let her finish. Then I dropped the printed screenshots of her chats right in front of her. Her face went pale. After a long pause, she said it was just flirtation, that nothing physical had happened. I told her any man calling her baby his was no joke. After arguing for hours, she finally agreed to the test. Eventually, we went ahead with the paternity test. When the results came back, it confirmed what I feared, the baby was not mine. At that point, Sophie dropped the act and started asking for forgiveness. She claimed the pregnancy was from a sperm donor and that she had no idea who the real father was. I knew she was lying, but I was too worn out and angry to press the issue, so I left her at the hospital. Back at home, I began packing the things I needed. While I was still gathering the last of my belongings, Sophie came home and tried to stop me. I was boiling with anger and knew if I stayed, I might say or do something I would regret. So I walked out. It is hard to explain just how hurt and betrayed I felt. No words really do it justice. As I stepped out, she turned dramatic, yelling names at me, doing everything she could to stop me from leaving. But I left. We went a full week without speaking. During that time, she called constantly, left long voicemails filled with sobbing, screaming, begging. She sounded like a different person in every message. Then, just 2 days ago, her parents got involved. They called me all kinds of names, deadbeat, useless, even said I was the worst father any child could have. The irony was ridiculous. I wanted to end the marriage quietly, without exposing Sophie's infidelity. But while I stayed silent, she went around playing the victim, telling lies to anyone who would listen. People started calling me, scolding me, judging me. Meanwhile, I knew the truth, she had ruined everything. Her parents even threatened consequences if anything happened to Sophie or the baby. Even though the child was not mine, I still cared enough about that unborn baby not to make life harder for it. That is the only reason I stayed quiet, for now. Update 1. I appreciate all the comments and support. When I said I wanted to divorce Sophie without drama, I meant it. I have had enough emotional chaos to last a lifetime. The miscarriages, the betrayal, it all added up. Some of you said we married too fast. Maybe. But I truly believed I knew her. We grew up together. A year of dating felt like enough. Last week, I made a vague post on Facebook about heartbreak and broken trust. One of Sophie's former colleagues messaged me, He was also a teacher at her school. He said he needed to tell me something important about Sophie. We arranged to meet. He told me Sophie had been getting involved with several of her students' fathers, specifically, the ones with gifted kids. He said he even had a short video he had taken months ago, showing her being way too friendly with one of them. He told me the school was aware and that it was the real reason Sophie was fired shortly after she got pregnant. All this time, she had led me to believe she had quit on her own. It made sense. Her income never changed. She kept her usual routine, came home acting like everything was normal. She told me stories about her students, her day, her classroom. Lies. All of it. I felt disgusted. I had given everything to support her while she fed me stories and played pretend. After hearing all that, I contacted a lawyer and began the divorce process. I do not know what is next for me. But I will update you all again once this chapter is officially closed. Update 2. Thank you again for standing by me. Many of you said taking Sophie back would be the biggest mistake I could make, and you were right. I am done with her. There is no love left, and definitely no pity. A woman capable of doing what she did while I worked every day to give her the life she wanted? That is someone I cannot trust. Honestly, I believe she could have hurt me worse, even physically. People like that are unpredictable. Eventually, I had enough of her parents hounding me. I dropped the screenshots of her conversations with the other man into their family group chat. I also sent a voice note explaining everything clearly, so no one could claim they misunderstood. Then, I confronted Sophie one final time. I told her straight I knew she had slept with multiple men. I knew the baby belonged to none of us, because I had spoken to the scientist's wife, and he had done a paternity test too. He was not the father either. Sophie was stunned. She had lost weight from all the crying, panicking, and pleading. But I was done. She tried to justify it, said she wanted good genes for her baby. She told me my genes were weak. I could not believe she said that to my face. But she did. She thought she could manipulate her affair partner into paying child support. Too bad for her, because he wanted to fix his marriage and also demanded a paternity test. When the results came back, it showed he was not the father either. Turned out Sophie had been sleeping with multiple men, me, the scientist, and at least 2 others. She had no idea who the father was. 2 weeks later, my lawyer sent over the divorce papers. Sophie refused to sign them at first. She claimed I had ruined her life and needed to stay with her. As if. Eventually, when her parents found out the full truth, they disowned her. They were embarrassed beyond words. After that, she finally signed the papers. We are officially divorced now. She lost her husband, her reputation, and her family. Now, she has a child on the way and no one standing by her. I hope she finds the child's real father, but that is no longer my concern. And thank you to those of you who told me to reach out to the other man's wife. That changed everything. Story 2, cheated on after a 4-year relationship. Let me give you some background. I am a 24-year-old man, and I was in a relationship with my girlfriend, also 24, for over 4 years. When we first got together, she had just come out of a very toxic relationship, one that had left her pretty broken, both emotionally and physically. I was the one who helped her heal. We bonded deeply during that time, and I honestly never imagined she could betray me. Throughout our time together, we often talked about cheating. We both agreed that it solved nothing and that communication was always the better path. She seemed to believe that, and I trusted her completely. She never gave me a reason to think otherwise, at least not at first. But this past year, things began to shift. She started acting distant, and her interests began to change. Suddenly, she was all about going to nightclubs with her best friend. She said she just wanted to dance. I told her it was not really my scene and that I had no desire to be the guy standing around playing bodyguard. She understood that, and I let her go, thinking it was harmless. I trusted her. I really did. But then, one evening while we were looking at something on her phone, a message popped up from a guy named Chris, or at least, that is the name she saved him under. I asked her about it. She said he was just some random guy who complimented her and asked for her number. And she gave it to him. Her excuse? She had been drunk. That set off alarm bells for me. I had believed she was just out there dancing with her friend, not giving out her number to strangers. When I confronted her, it turned into a big argument. She accused me of being jealous and controlling. I pointed out that she seemed to lose all self-control when she drank, and that neither she nor her friend would be able to stop anything serious from happening if they were drunk or worse. We managed to get past the fight, but things were not the same. She started acting defensive anytime I asked questions. She also claimed I was judging her whenever she shared something sensitive. Around that time, I started checking her messages behind her back. She was still in contact with that guy, but their chats were nothing serious, just small talk now and then. Then, a few days ago, everything fell apart. It had been a long time since I looked at her phone, and I had been feeling like maybe things were getting better between us. I was still putting in a lot of effort. She said she was just tired from university and work, and I believed that because I was stressed too. But one night, she fell asleep, and I checked her messages again. One of the first chats I saw was with that same guy, Chris. She had been out that night, and while I thought she went to bed early, she had actually stayed up texting him from the club. At 3 a.m, she was sending him photos and saying she was drunk. I was furious. But I did not say anything yet. I kept looking and found another conversation with a different guy, someone I did not recognize. Their messages were not graphic, but they were intimate enough. I scrolled back through the chat history and saw that she had met him 3 months earlier, just out on the street. What really crushed me was a message she sent him just a few days later. Out of nowhere, she told him not to tell anyone what they were doing in bed. That was the moment I broke. I woke her up and asked her if she would ever tell me the truth if she had cheated. She said she would. Then there was a long silence, and she asked where her phone was. I gave it to her, and she left the room. She admitted it later. She said she got drunk that night while hanging out with her friend at their place. She said she felt distant from me, like we could not communicate, and that I was not giving her enough attention. I had always tried to be there for her. I would have given her more if she had just said something. That night, she walked alone, texted that guy, went to his place, kissed him, held him, and slept next to him. At least, that is what she told me. Now, she is desperate to win me back. She says she loves me. Says she will never do it again. She wants to go to therapy and work on the relationship. Part of me wants to believe her, but the other part of me is still shattered. How do you stay with someone after that? We were planning a future together, moving in, getting married, and she was hiding all of this. I kept asking myself, is what she did unforgivable? Am I being too proud by walking away? But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I cannot live in constant fear of being hurt like this again. So I made my decision. I ended it. No more calls, no more messages. I cut her off completely. I just hope time makes this pain easier to carry.